Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It is very cold again today in New Jersey. It's sunny, but it's very cold. So, based on the title, we're going to talk about lots and lots of vintage things today, but I think I want to really talk about vintage skills. So, anyway, before we get into that, there's a couple of odds and ends I picked up that I haven't really shown you guys. They've been like online purchases and things like that. So let's just look at some vintage stuff that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks that I really like and that I want to talk about. So here's one of the first things. I actually found this at Goodwill, and it's quite beautiful, isn't it? I'm not sure that this hat was ever meant to be worn. I mean, you can, right? But I think it's going to have to be like this kind of a hat, or maybe for me better on this side. But it's just absolutely beautiful, right? Now, what this is most likely, I mean, it's really nice. Look at it. Can you see the raffia? And it's in excellent condition, really. I need to put something in here to stuff this. But I remember seeing these years ago in Mexico, and they weren't as nice. By this time, they were like a plastic, and, you know, they were a tourist thing that you got like in Tijuana. But I also have friends that have gotten these in the Caribbean. So, but I thought this one was so beautiful. It's very obviously vintage because everything is all natural. None of this is plastic. So I was very happy to pick this up at Goodwill. It was something like $2.99, right? Another one of those amazing Goodwill purchases. And then Miss Catherine Young had done a really wonderful vintage haul, and she had picked up these absolutely amazing eyeglasses. Now, they are, unfortunately, in my opinion, like a little too small for my face. Like, I have a very large face, so that's why I wear something more like this. But I just love them. And they reminded me so much of a pair that my grandmother had. In fact, let me show you the side view. They're pretty little Diamondique something. And I am going to turn these into reading glasses. Years ago, I had a really nice pair that were larger like this. Years ago, they were schoolboys, and they finally just broke. But I had gone to an optician, and they told me that basically get the metal ones. The metal vintage glasses are easier to put new frames into than the plastic ones, which even like the Bakelite ones, because what happens is it gets old and it gets dried out and it cracks too easily. So I'm going to be doing that soon, but I thought these were so cute and I would show them to you guys. And Catherine, being Catherine, of course, sent them to me wrapped in this, right? The yellow rose. And I have a whole bunch of hankies that belong to my mom that I've held on to because who doesn't love a hanky, right? Who doesn't love a hanky? What a fabulous thing. I wish people used them more because really, when you think about it, they're incredibly practical. Like, instead of just constantly buying tissues and cutting down trees, blow your nose into this and wash it, right? And you know, the thing is, you can pick up whole bags of these I see them at Goodwill once in a while. It'll be like a whole bag for $2.99 or whatever. Another thing I picked up, and I picked this up a while ago, but since I knew I was going to want to talk about practical vintage lifestyle and vintage skills today, I wanted to show you guys one of my absolute favorite cookbook finds. And I believe I found this. This might have been an Etsy purchase. You will see this cookbook all over Etsy. It was given out by the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. And my particular one, this one that I have, is from 1937. I have seen them up well into the 50s, and the graphics always change, but it's always the Metropolitan cookbook. I must say, if I was a young bride in 1930 or 1940 or whenever, and I could not afford to buy cookbooks, this would be the one I want. This has literally every recipe you can possibly imagine because it has very basic recipes, and then it shows you how to do add-ons. Like, they have a basic, I think it's actually called a basic muffin recipe. And then in the notes, it says, add a half a cup of fresh berries, add a cup of dried fruit. Like, it gives you the breakdown of how and what to add to this to make it, different. Great cake recipes, cooking for babies, cooking for cooking for invalids, which I think is kind of funny when we say that now. It sounds so strange, but they actually have a recipe, something called toast water, which I have actually heard of, where you toast bread and then you pour boiling water over it and then you remove the bread. Or you can leave the bread in if the person can handle it, but they drink the water. It's very strange, but you know. So speaking of vintage skills, I was really missing sewing. I know I've been talking about this a while, and I was really missing sewing. This was one of the many patterns that I got in that haul, which I will be bringing to you on Monday, I think at about 2 o'clock. I have some stuff I have to get done in the morning, so I think I'm going to do it at 2 o'clock. In fact, while this is uploading, I'm going to figure all that out. So what did I decide to make? This one here, which may be, other than this one, the hardest apron to make. So let me show you where I'm at so far. So here's the apron so far. As you can see, I have sewn it, pinned all the lace to it. I had this fabric, which I had bought, of all places, like at Walmart on clearance back in like 2019. It was in the clearance area, and I was like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice fabric. I'll make a pillow out of it, or who knows, tree skirt, something, right? It sat and sat in my stash forever. So I finally put it together as an apron. Now, unfortunately, I had to stop because I'm having problems with my machine. It probably needs to be cleaned, but I'll show you what happened. See that there? That's my bobbin bunching up. The stitch that I used on this was, it's a double stitch. So what happens is the machine stitches 2, then it moves back up, stitches 2. But I wanted to be able to hold this lace in place, because this lace, I believe, is at least vintage, maybe even antique. It's got the feel of cotton lace, not a polyester lace. It has like a texture to it, which the polyester lace feels like slippery. That's the best way I can describe it. Or actually sometimes feels almost like itchy. But so I'm gonna have to fix that. I may also have to just get better thread. I'm using a polyester thread. There's a possibility that that polyester thread is just so cheap that I'm gonna need to dig through my stash of thread and find a gray, a dark, well, it's actually a medium gray cotton thread, which I'm sure I have. So I'll be working on that later. So now that we've talked about all these vintage skills, there's a really lovely lady named Christina. Her channel is called The Air Effect here on YouTube. I'm going to link just she has a random video that she did at Christmas with her kids playing in the snow that's so cute. So I'm just going to link that just so you can find her channel. But she uses the phrase practical vintage lifestyle. And I love that phrase. And I love her for talking about it because, now, aside from the fact that she wears vintage clothing, she does have a fairly vintage lifestyle. And I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but just let me tell you, I am a devout feminist. Devout, dyed in the wool. There's no other way to describe it. But I also believe that every family, every woman, every mother, every couple needs to make decisions that suit their lives the best. And that we need to stop, especially women, need to stop harassing, I guess would be the right word, women who make different decisions than we do. I did not have children. I was married for a split second. We did not have children. I never had children. So that was the life I chose. But in spite of all that, I am, not kidding you, basically like a 1950s housewife living in the 2000s. I bake, I sew, obviously. I cook. I can my own fruits and vegetables. I make my own jam. I'm extremely house proud. Like, I hate to clean, but I still clean because I love a clean house more than I hate to clean. I'm very house proud. I am so looking forward in the next couple of years to buying my own home, which is finally probably a reality because recently this week, my union, the Teamsters, negotiated a mid-contract raise for all of the bus drivers where I work. In fact, I think they did it at several places because there's such a shortage. So we're in demand. So we get a little bit of power that we normally don't have. And I'm very excited about it. So I got a very good raise, which means that I can actually start looking at low-income loans and pre-qualify and try and find myself a little house, which are abundant in the area that I live, because I just want a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and they're everywhere where I live. But the market where I live is very high because people tear them down and build newer structures. Anyway, I digress. When I get that house, which I will because I want to, I can hardly wait to have a garden. I can hardly wait to have a vegetable garden where I can then also produce some of the fruits and vegetables that I can throughout the year and pickle and everything else. I used to make my own bread. I mean, I was pretty hardcore, but yet I still worked all the time. It's a strange thing, but here's what I'm getting at. When this woman Christina talks about living a practical vintage life, the thing that I really like about that, the thing that resonates with me with that statement is, I feel like we all, regardless of gender, and regardless of marital situation, financial situation, really would benefit from living a practical vintage life and acquiring vintage skills, being able to grow even a small amount of the food that you eat, even just being able to grow the herbs that you use to cook. You can do in an apartment, and I've done it. I'm growing rosemary right now on my windowsill. Being able to sew something, and I'm not saying you have to sew an outfit. Being able to hem some pants, sew a button on, maybe drop the hem on a pair of trousers you already have, fix a pocket, fix the lining of a jacket rather than buying a new one. Being able to cook things. Something interesting has been happening recently, and you see a lot of news reports about the price of food going up. So I do this thing, it's like my form of roulette. I go into the supermarket and I go into the meat area, which is where the prices have been the highest. And I look for yellow stickers. They're all of the meat that's been reduced because it needs to be sold for quick sale. And I pick up 3 or 4 of the things that are less than $5 in the meat department. And I freeze them or I cook them right away. The reason I can do that is because I've taken time to learn how to cook. Yes, I was a professional, but well before I was a professional, I cooked all the time. And I tried things out and I made mistakes, but I still cooked all the time. And to this day, even though I'm single and I live alone, I cook every night. I cook from scratch all the time. Cooking from scratch is possibly one of the best things you can teach yourself to do. You have more control over your money. You have more control over your diet. You have more control over your food budget in general. So yeah, if you can figure out a way to learn a little bit of sewing, do a little bit of gardening, and learn to cook, even if it's just a couple basic recipes, you will first of all be much more independent. You will save an incredible amount of money. And I think these vintage skills are worth acquiring and worth holding on to. It makes me very sad to find out that a lot of schools have gotten rid of home economics. That really bothers me. But I think acquiring these skills and using them is a way to live a practical vintage lifestyle, because they are vintage skills and they are unfortunately disappearing, which is very sad to me. But every time I see her say that phrase, practical vintage lifestyle, it makes me think of that. Not to mention, I have to be honest, you see me buying all this vintage stuff. A lot of the stuff I buy, like I have a bunch of Revere wear that I've bought for pennies, really pennies, on comparison to what it sells for, we used to sell for at thrift stores. Is that stuff lasts forever. The new stuff, not so great. Everything breaks right away. So buying old vintage things, they really last forever. I have lots of furniture, dishes, all kinds of stuff. They're all vintage and they are made to last. And that's another thing I really like about having a vintage lifestyle or a vintage frame of mind. Now, keep in mind, when I say vintage frame of mind, I'm thinking about that kind of stuff. I am not a supporter of laws against homosexuality, racism, sexism, any of that. Like I said, devout feminist. But I think some of the skills are a really good thing to learn. And I don't think they should be gender specific. I think boys should take home ec. I think girls should take shop. I think kids should learn all of the stuff they're actually going to use every day. Teach them how to change a tire. Teach them how to sew on a button. Teach them how to change the oil in their car, how to balance a checkbook, how to fry an egg, how to make pasta correctly, how to follow directions on a box of brownies, any of it. It's all good, right? Teach them how to grow something, even if it's cherry tomatoes in a pot, on your back porch. Let's teach kids how to do this stuff. I'm really sad that we're losing these skills. But so that was my soapbox for today. So anyway, until my next video, which I am going to do a video on Monday, and I'm going to show you the 1940s patterns. I'm going to do it as a live feed. I'm going to set that up today. And I think on Tuesday I'm going to show you guys the puzzles, because except for that big haul I did of those vintage patterns, my Goodwill has been a little sparse. So until my next video, which will be Monday at 2 o'clock and a live feed, please like, subscribe, comment, and tell me what your favorite, best, most rewarding vintage skills are, because I know mine are cooking and sewing. And until the next video, stay well, stay warm, and thank you for coming by. I really appreciate all of you. I have some new subscribers. Thanks so much for joining. Have a good day, guys. Bye.